Hey Andy, thanks for joining me here this afternoon. How's it going?
Pretty good. Doing good. How you doing, James?
Doing well, man. I'm so excited to have you on. A little bit of backstory for anyone listening right now. Andy and I have worked together for, I don't know, a handful of years, I would say. Met way back in the day when I was actually at my last W-2 job. Shout out to iWe Social. It's no longer a company. And then Andy and I met when I started running my own marketing agency. Fast forward to now, what we're doing with Day Porter and what we did with Agency Flair. Andy's just always been my go-to kind of website guy and now friend. Andy, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe for simple introductions for people listening, why don't you just give us some background on the story of Andy? Kind of give us the Cliff Note version of not only just who you are, but how you got to where you're at now. You have a really interesting story and been in the web game for what would seem like forever compared to some web developers, but kind of just give us your story.
Okay, well, God, I don't know where to start. Let's see. Andrew Rice. I went to school, University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and studied product design. And in product design, you learn how to present. That's a main thing that you wind up learning because you're presenting your ideas. And part of that was presenting through photography, presenting through print. And back then, that was 1991. It wasn't really presenting in the web, but but um, but we were working with Photoshop 1.0. I mean, am I dating myself here? I'm an old guy.
It's all good.
um, but through that process, I got familiar with the digital world, and and then in the early 90s started to work in HTML and web, and kind of like just it was always something that I used as a tool to promote my products, my ideas. And then I was starting to be asked to work on websites and help people develop their websites and their ideas and how do we present this on the web. And back then, like I said, it was mainly coded HTML, that type of thing. And as the web developed, we progressed with it. We started to work in Joomla, which was a content management system,
Mm.
and then quickly realized WordPress was the way to go. And as WordPress we kind of grew with it. And um, yeah, I mean, now that's mainly what our focus is, although we do work on some other platforms for smaller businesses that need to stay within a certain budget range. But WordPress is our go-to if you it depends on what your goals are, really, but we're really comfortable with it. We've been doing it for a long time, and we know it well.
And now you kind of do it on a range of things from big sites, small sites, kind of across the board. And something what I've always appreciated about you. Before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of like what you do now,
Yeah.
um, take me back like when you started out on your own in business. I want to go to the early days of Andy. So you were kind of like on this at this weird time where like websites were really becoming a thing
Yeah.
and like web companies were starting to pop up. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like you were on the cusp of an industry that was just being formulated and created 20 something years ago. When did you make that transition like full time on your own? Like walk me through like those days.
Well, I guess my real so like I said, I was kind of involved in using it as a presentation tool, but I also have another history uh, as I wouldn't say a filmmaker, but I was involved in filmmaking. I was involved in corporate video, and my brother and I actually got started on an idea where um, we were going to present video tours of places to go, things to see in certain areas. So think Expedia way back in the day with 56K modems. And we were thinking, well, what's lacking when you want to go travel? Um, you don't know where you're going. I mean, yeah, someone can do a write-up, but is there video of like what the place is like, and what are the restaurants, what are the things to do when you get there, what's the hotel like that you're going to stay in? So we started this project, and part of that project was presenting it in the web. And so one of the challenges was presenting video in a way that could stream over the web back in the days of 56K modems. The modems are like, and it connects. And so that was a big challenge. And it was a huge learning curve for me. It was still back in HTML. So I think we were working in Dreamweaver and hand coding all of that. And it was just, I guess there's a geeky part of me, and I got into it and I started to learn about it, and really enjoyed it. And I saw the opportunity to start to provide that as a business outside of the project that my brother and I were working on. In short, the project my brother and I were working on was right when the .com crash happened. So that kind of did not happen, but the tools and things I learned in that process helped me to develop the web end of my business. And I travel a lot. My family and I have traveled a lot. So I knew I could take this business anywhere I wanted to go. We lived in Hawaii, we lived in Costa Rica, and we just, but the business of web can be anywhere, and it allowed us to do that. So I started, so part of the appeal was of getting into web was that we could travel, we could keep traveling, we could work remotely, or I could work remotely. And it just was something that I always did, along with some other projects that I just kept me busy, and it started to grow, and it started to get to be a bigger part of what my income wound up being. So at a certain point, I started to focus on that being the main stream of income, the main business I wanted to work on. And then ultimately moving back to Colorado after Hawaii and Costa Rica. We moved back here for our son. It was high school time, and Costa Rica was not the place to stay for high school. And that was when you and I connected, James, and that was where things kind of started to take off pretty quickly. Focused on creating the business I'm running now, UX Media House. And I guess that's how things got going.
So, no, I love your story mainly because like you were on the cutting edge of a newly like an industry that was on the come up, web development.
Yeah.
Then you were able to kind of work remote wherever you wanted in the world before this was a thing. I know it's 2022 now, so everyone's working wherever they want virtually, but you were doing this way before that was like even heard of. Did it in a different country. And then once you moved back here, that's when you and I linked up. And what I appreciated about you so much was I was in digital marketing, which is like the Wild West. And that industry, when I thought about the industry itself, always was kind of crazy to me because I'm like, there's these digital marketers working out of their mom's basement, making tens of thousands of dollars a month just running Google AdWords campaigns. There was all these freelance web developers I knew that made a shit ton of money, but I didn't know like exactly where they got their clientele from, but they always had these big deals. Like the industry itself was just kind of like the Wild West. And I went through the ringer trying to find good web people to work with, and just time and time again, the web industry, if you will, or web developers just failed me, if I'm being frank. And it was just like a really shitty experience. So when I met Andy, when I finally got to do a project with you, it was like, holy cow, there's a guy that suits up, shows up, and says what he's going to do and does it on time. I'm curious, from someone like you that's been in the game for 20 years now, what's your take just on like kind of the web development industry?
Well, it's funny. That article I just wrote, has your web guy ghosted you? I say, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, yeah, I had a website done, and then the guy just disappeared, or the girl just, my web person just, I can't get a hold of them. I don't know where they are. It happens all the time. And, it's an unfortunate part of the industry we're in, is because anybody can do it. You can do it from anywhere in the world. There's services like Fiverr, Upwork, those types of service where you can contact a guy anywhere in the world and get good rates. And so that's appealing. But a lot of times, most of the time, there's no follow through, or that person's around for the whole job if you're lucky, and then they're gone, and then there's not consistent follow up. And so I don't know. It's part of who I am. I was raised in Philadelphia on the East Coast, and when you say you're going to be there, you're there, and if you make a commitment, you follow through on that commitment. That's just how I was brought up. So that's how I operate UX Media House, and that's how I've been operating this the web business I've had for years. And I mean, I'm up against that type of thing.
I think a big problem is a lot of the website development world is very technical. Like, hey, I'm good at being quote unquote technical. I'm good at development. I'm good at design. I'm good at making websites, but I'm not great at like the relationship part. And so much of running a business is relational. And I've been on client meetings with you where you're great at the relationship part of it, not just the technical part of it. And I think that was like what I noticed early on is, yeah, there's a lot of good like web companies out there that are good at the X's and O's, the nuts and bolts of it, but they really suck at the client like experience, and that's really actually what matters, whether you're doing sales, whether you're doing marketing, whether you're doing an HVAC company. It doesn't fucking matter. Clients care about experience. And actually, I would almost argue product can sometimes even come secondary to experience. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, that's one of the things I love about the work that I do, is I get to meet people, and I've always loved meeting people. I mean, we lived in Hawaii. I surfed all the time, and my buddy that I would surf with would always call me Chatty Cathy, because I was always talking to people out there, and I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting people, getting to know what their life is like, and as far as their business is concerned, what their needs are. And that becomes kind of an important thing that we can get the job done, but we're also paying attention to what you really need as a company, or as a small business. And I think that is lacking in the industry at times. And you might have a point. I mean, some people are just super technical and they don't know how to relate. But like I said, it's part of what I enjoy, and part of what, I'm a Philly boy, so I don't know. That's how we operate.
So you would classify yourself as not a sales guy. I've had a few guests on this show that say, "Oh, I'm not a sales guy," but yet they're pretty good at sales. Majority of our audience that listen to the show are in sales. I classify all of us as sales entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. You run your own business, therefore, automatically that puts you in sales. So I'm curious why you would classify yourself as someone who's not a sales guy.
Well, I guess my younger brother, he's a sales guy like that. He went, that's his career. He's worked for a lot of different companies, and he sells, and he's good at it. And I just never saw myself that way. But one of the things I've learned over the years is it's not, I maybe don't call myself a sales guy, but I know once I'm talking to the client, a new client, I know I can close the deal, because I enjoy relating to the clients, and I think that that's appreciated, and their needs are important. So I think that's really what's important in sales is to close that deal, is to know that the person you want to hire is going to take care of you, and is interested in taking care of you. I guess the reason I don't I say I'm not a sales guy is I'm not good at getting out there and getting the word out. That's the way I see myself.
You're not a marketing guy. That's really what you should
Maybe
say.
that's a better way to say it. Yeah.
But here's a big thing, and I think everyone should understand this. I hear from founders and owners almost monthly that says, "Hey, I'm not a sales guy, but get me in the room and I can sell."
Right.
And it's like, actually, you are a salesperson because you know how to identify a problem and you know how to come up with a solution and you know how to connect and make a person feel comfortable. That's essentially all sales is. And once a founder or a business owner gets in the room and they can easily display that value or make a prospect feel comfortable to where there's an actual transaction at the end of it, that person gives you some sort of dollar amount. And in your case, sometimes that could be thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
That's a sale. And I think there's this big misconception of, oh, I'm not a sales guy. I'm not pushy. I can't promote. I can't get the word out. It's like, no, actually, if you can get someone to trust you by giving you money, you are a salesperson. And I believe every business owner and founder, ultimately, your responsibility is sales. So it's so funny. I hear people like yourself and had a
Yeah.
guest named Ben Brommer. You know Ben
Oh
on
yeah.
here. I'm not a sales guy, but I'm like, well, you sold me.
He
Like,
sold me
I
too.
mean, yeah. So I mean, so here we are. So it's kind of funny the thought of sales that some people have. I grew up thinking like sales was like fucked up, right? Like
Yeah, me too. And I
stay
was
away
like,
from sales.
oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So it's kind of funny when those preconceived beliefs really kind of like lead us through life. And I didn't want to accept the fact that I was a sales guy, and not only a sales guy, I loved sales. It took me like literally 10 years to accept that, which is so crazy to think about. I want to
It
talk to
is.
you real
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about working on your business versus working in your business.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen you since at least coming back to the US and working with you for I think it's like 5, 6, maybe even 7 years now. I don't even know. For sure, at least 5. Um, your business has evolved since I've known you, which is awesome. And I've loved watching the growth of it. You now have an employee, which is badass.
Hmm.
Um, talk to me about like someone listening that might be a solopreneur, might still be doing it all. When you hear the term work on your business versus working in your business, like what's that mean to you? And like what's that evolvement been like for
Yeah.
you personally?
Well, yeah, I mean, forever it was working in the business. I mean, I just did it all. And I was the guy that answered the phone. I was the guy that built the site, did the back end code. It was randomly, once in a while, I would find some help outside from an independent contractor. That was always pretty difficult. And like I could see where people would run into the issue of trying to find someone on Upwork, Fiverr, those type of things, because it's random. You don't know who you're getting. Um, and I ran into that experience multiple times and was disappointed more times than I like to remember. Um, but I could only do so much. And I realized coming back to the States that I wanted, one of my main goals was to grow the business. And I can only grow it so much if it's me doing all the work. So we looked into a way to make the business grow, to get the business to grow. And the answer really was not having me not do the work and finding someone to do the work for me. So finding an employee. And that really was a game changer, because what it does is it frees up my time to go look for business. So that's where working on the business. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
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 working on.
yeah.
I'm getting the terminology messed up. Yeah,
Versus
is
working in.
yeah, and so working on the business is where my main focus is now. Now, it depends. Sometimes there's big jobs that I have my hands in, and I like to have my hands in some of those jobs. But over the past year, having an employee has allowed me to grow the business and work on it to grow it. And it's a game changer. It was a risk for sure, because I've got an employee that I've got to pay on a monthly basis, and I've made that commitment, and I've got to follow through on that commitment. So it's also incentive though to bring in more business.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy once you have an employee too, how much like you realize once you're like 3 months removed from working like the day to day and it just being on you, you're like, holy shit, I was doing so much I didn't like.
Yeah,
I was doing so much. How was I even doing so much and so much of this stuff that I didn't even like?
yeah,
And then like now it's actually probably getting done more efficiently with potentially better attention because your employee's energy level on that project is different than yours would be when you resent it.
yeah.
So I mean, what was that like finally being now I think you've been doing this for like a year now in terms of like learning how to delegate and having someone help you work in the business. What are your thoughts on like or what are like what's your perception now like so far removed you're like how did I do that?
Yeah, well, I think you said it well, is that, when you have to do it all, there's times when, first of all, you may not have enough time, so you don't give a job the time that it needs. And that happens in any business. And I didn't like to see that. So having someone that I can hand the work off to, I know that they have plenty of time to get the job done correctly. And what's funny though is I still struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
well, I can just take care of that. It'll take me 10 minutes or it'll take me 15 minutes. And then it takes me an hour. And I'm like, why didn't I just hand it off?
Absolutely. Delegation is a skill that's always ongoing and you have to practice. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's
And
like
it's
so
coming from
much.
coming from a place where I was doing it all, it's tough. And plus, maybe there's a sort of control issue that I might have. I like to see it done well, but that doesn't mean you can't hand it off to your employee and check on the work and see how it's coming along and is it getting done correctly. I mean, that's part of what I'm doing now. So it's been it was a challenge, but the payoff's fantastic.
I heard a good quote about leadership when it kind of comes to this. And it was like, okay, when you first are starting to delegate, expect your employee if it's a scale 1 to 10, 10 being like that's your expectation on the quality of work, expect the work to be at a 6 and be okay with the work being at a 6 for a while and watch that growth and go to a 7, and then that 7 will go to an 8 with your training, with your guidance, with your leadership. That's true leadership, is you're giving trust knowing that it's not going to be up to your standard, up to your quality, up to your speed, but over time, due to your guidance and direction, you bring it from a 6 to a 9, and then you are able to then focus your efforts on something else that you can give a 9 or a 10 effort to. So it's it's double the force,
Right.
because you've duplicated your skill set at that point.
Yeah, and it's progressive, like you said. I mean, when we went through 2 or 3 employees, and then we until we found one that we're really happy with, um, and even then, it was a learning curve because we have certain ways we work on sites, certain processes we have, and that person needs to learn those things and learn them properly, and it takes time. But once they're up and running, sometimes I'm amazed at how quickly things get done and grateful for it.
No doubt about it. Talk to me about really where a lot of small businesses mess up in the web world. You manage, you host, you've developed a ton of different websites. A lot of small businesses listen to the show. Where's like the biggest like I guess what's one thing that small businesses need to be pay attention to when it comes to their website, and like what's one challenge or area of mistake that you see made when it comes to the web world with small business?
Well, I would say let's focus on WordPress because there's a lot of small businesses that start with a WordPress site, and WordPress is appealing because it's free to get into and you can throw a theme up there and you can start to throw content. But one of the huge issues that I always see is I started my WordPress site. I haven't looked at it in like 5 months. and it's just not working right anymore. Things have changed. I don't know how to add content. Can you help me? And so that's one of the things we first offer for WordPress sites is we do an audit. We'll log into the back end or have the client log in for us and share screen so we can see what's going on. And that's usually enough for us to know where things have gone wrong. And in 9 times out of 10, it's that they haven't been updating the site. And WordPress is finicky that way because WordPress is popular. Because it's popular, hackers go after it. And because of that, security releases are being released all the time from WordPress itself. And then because it snowballs, and then because of that, then all the plugins that are used to make WordPress do what you want it to do, or themes, then they are updating to stay up to date with WordPress. So there's this constant maintenance that really needs to happen to keep a WordPress site functioning properly. And that's what I see that just doesn't get done because people don't understand that they need to do it. And then once you get too far down the road of not updating it, updating one thing can break a site.
Yeah, there's a process to follow.
Yeah,
And
there's a process.
if you're a business owner, like you're not privy to that process and probably have no want to be a part of that process. And we just talked about delegation.
Yeah.
This is probably something that I think a lot of companies need to consider is like, I don't know if the term webmaster is outdated, but like having like a web partner.
Yeah.
Like you're my web partner, right? Like if I have a problem with my site, I call Andy and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
what's up? Or if I have a thought of like something I want to create, hey, how do we go about doing this? So it sounds like maybe just like having a more solidified web partner.
I think, well, having a partner and having someone that is checking that site on a regular basis. So one of the services we offer is WordPress maintenance. And that we go in once a month and we check on the site. We make sure it's up to date. And that's enough to make sure that we don't fall behind and run into issues. And then it also familiarizes ourselves with the particular website or with the client's business. And then we can have discussions on, well, hey, I want to make the site, expand it and have it do this or that, expand functionality. And because we're familiar with the site, we know how to go about that.
It's kind of crazy to me. Like a lot of businesses know they need a website, they have a website, but then yet oftentimes it's neglected,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's one of the most, or it's one of the primary revenue generating tools, whether you're generating leads for your business that turn into money, whether you're actually selling product, whether you actually have some sort of transaction that happens through your website. It's a revenue generating tool and often the most neglected, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
I think even though it's 2022, I can go down the list of at least service-based companies, industries I'm more familiar with, like HVAC and commercial cleaning. These websites are meant to generate more appointments and walkthroughs and bids for these companies, and yet they're one of the most neglected things. But then these people will be posting on a Facebook page, and it's like, yeah, that's not going to do shit for your business, especially if you don't have a good website. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of business owners just aren't educated on the importance of it. And then if they are, they don't know where to go. So I think there is an educational gap, even in 2022, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
And Andy, I have two last things for you here. And one's kind of a wrap up question on everything we've talked about. And then the second one's what we call question roulette, where I ask you a random question out of one of two boxes. But to wrap up, if there's one thing today, if there's a small business owner listening to this show right now, what should they be doing when it comes to like thinking about like their web architect setup, and like what should they like, what's one thing that should be on their radar that may or may or that will help them?
Well, paying attention to the site, getting in and updating it on a regular basis. And I don't mean updating like just a WordPress site. These can be small sites too. Like we work on WordPress, but we also do like Squarespace, Weebly, some of those sites that they're cheap. It's a lower price point to get into,
Sure.
and keeping those up to date with content. and understanding how to go in and make your own changes if you can. If you can't, making sure you call someone that knows what they're doing.
I totally agree, man. I think websites need to really be the forefront of your online strategy, and I think online needs to be the forefront of your business strategy.
Yeah,
So for whatever that's worth.
it's where everybody goes now. I mean, everyone's got one of these, and and every site should be working properly on a phone too.
Yeah,
And that's where most of the traffic happens now. And that's not always the case. It's more so these days, but it's something you want to make sure is working properly.
absolutely, absolutely, man. All right, so last question for you here. Part of what we call question roulette. I have a black box and I have a white box. Completely random questions. Never asked these questions. Don't know what's been at, or don't know what type of questions are in here. Um, but you get to choose one. Would you rather pick from the black box or the white box?
Black box.
I swear to you, man. I say 80% of people pick from the black box. I actually think it's 90% of people.
Really?
Yeah, it's so funny. This is a good one. What do you value most in your friends?
um, Honesty, connection,
Hmm.
authenticity, I think.
What do
You
you
know,
value most in your clients?
I would say the same,
Funny how
someone,
that works.
yeah, I mean, someone who knows they can trust me, but also is open about uh, who they are as a business and what they want to achieve as a business, and is not afraid to ask stupid questions, because everyone's got to be able to ask that stupid question. And I think authenticity and honesty, um, that's part of being having those two qualities, is being willing to say, hey, listen, I don't know what to do here, please, can you help me?
Yeah, well said, man. Totally agree. And it's funny, I asked, what do you expect from your clients as well? Because when I think about my clients and my friends, not all my clients are my friends. That's not the case. But
Right.
I work with people I like. I don't want to work with assholes. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
No
of
shit.
similar traits in the people. And let me tell you, Andy and I have both worked with assholes
Yes,
on
we
the same
have.
projects.
They come
So
and they go, and we're
yeah.
happy to see them go.
Yeah, thankfully. Hey man, I really appreciate your time today. Where if someone's listening right now, where can people find you? We'll link everything in the show notes. I'm going to link your new article in our show notes, but if
Thanks.
someone's looking to learn more about you or UX Media House, where should they go?
uxmediahouse.com. I mean,
Awesome.
that's where it all happens. Yeah,
Connect with
and there's
Andy
plenty
on
of ways to.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn as well.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. We'll link everything up if you're listening right now. Definitely check out uxmediahouse.com, and we'll go ahead and drop Andy's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. But appreciate it, brother, and look forward to speaking with you here soon.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise. Thanks.